Welcome to Don't Step on the Bluebells, the podcast where personal healing and transformation take center stage. I'm your host, Amanda Parker, and I'm a fellow seeker on the journey of personal growth. Join me as I delve into the stories of gifted healers, guides, and everyday people who have experienced remarkable transformations. Listen in as they share their practical wisdom to enrich your everyday life. And don't forget to hit subscribe and never miss a new episode. Welcome to this episode of Don't Step on the Bluebells, where I'm speaking to the incredible intuitive healer, Patricia Natalia. With a very diverse background, having started her studies in business and Spanish, moving into a more corporate role before quickly realizing that actually her life path and journey lay in helping people to heal, Natalia shares with us the incredible journey that she has been on to be able to get to this place in her life where she's able to help other people heal, as well as telling the stories of what's actually possible when you get to the root cause of a challenge that you're facing. She also helps us to demystify or even debunk some of these myths that we've heard about being on a spiritual journey or a spiritual path, and shares so much wisdom and insight. You are not going to want to miss this. So let's dive in. Welcome to today's episode of Don't Step on the Bluebells. I am joined here today by the incredible Patricia Natalia, also known as Natalia, and we're going to be talking about many of the incredible intuitive healing gifts that Natalia brings to the table. And she's going to be sharing with us the way that she works with people to really get to that root cause of what it is that they need to heal in their life. So I don't want to take up too much of that airtime and really want to dive in and allow Natalia to really share with us some of that magic that she brings into the world. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you.
So I am really excited to dive into this conversation. We actually met earlier this year through a common interest of ours. And ever since, I've just been really fascinated by what it is that you're doing in the world. So rather than asking you that direct question, I'd love for you to tell us, if you were going to explain to your 5-year-old self what it is that you do in the world, what would you say?
Wow, that's such a powerful question to start with. So I empower other people, mostly women, to really live in their highest and fullest potential. And I do this by looking at the root cause of what's keeping them stuck, what's keeping them playing small. This could be presenting itself through, it could be an illness, it could be a disease that's coming through, um, or it could simply just be the feeling of feeling stuck in a cycle. This again shows up in relationships. It can also show up as financial blocks. I body whisper, so I always have a conversation with a client initially just to see what I'm extracting from the energy field and also the organs and also the language that they are communicating. And I really sort of start just from there. So I hope that provides a summary. But essentially, what we're doing is when we remove these blocks, I am empowering a woman to really step into her highest and fullest potential in that. And that's something I love to see. I love that.
That was really a heavy hitter to start. So I appreciate you coming along for that journey with me. And I must say, it sounds like you have a very sophisticated 5-year-old self.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that part.
I help
to
women.
50.
Yay.
Yeah. Have lots of fun and really, really be who they want to be in the world. I think that's a lovely
Ooh,
baseline. Yeah.
that's amazing. So there's this work, the work that you're doing is really healing. It's helping people to heal. And I'm curious, this is a question that I really love to ask people who are joining. what exactly healing means to you. This can look so many different
Mm.
ways. So, what would you say that is for you?
Healing for me is coming back to, it's the soul's journey of coming back to the self. And through generations, through family setups, through our ancestors, and even through past lives, we accumulate layers, and we are walking around with these layers that have been placed upon us. We are born into families where we automatically have a layer that's put on us there, and then through childhood to adulthood, these layers just continue to form. And essentially, what happens is we become more and more, as these layers accumulate, disconnected from the self, and it makes it incredibly difficult to know our desires, to know ourselves, to know what it is that we really want in the world. And until we kind of really uncover and peel back these layers, I often find that we're really sort of connecting to the impressions that are placed on around us. And I find that this makes people feel incredibly lost over time. So, to summarize, with healing, what I like to do is sort of see it as I said, uncovering these layers wherever they may have come from, that doesn't matter. But it really is so you can connect and identify with your soul imprint, your soul personality, and who you really, really are, because I think that is when you are in your greatest power.
So that's amazing. What I'm hearing is that throughout our lifetime, we're picking up all these different layers of information from the
Mhm.
people around us, from our families, our societies, our jobs, our partners, everything, and kind of just
Yes,
collecting like a magnet all
yes,
these layers. And the process of
yes,
healing is really allowing those layers to fall away and come back to the
yeah.
core essence of who we are.
Yeah, exactly. And that also includes, and I should have mentioned this, this also includes our pain and trauma. So we go
Mm.
through life experiences and we collect, the pain and trauma from that. And I think often what happens is the conscious mind over time has the ability to forget about it. However, somewhere within the subconscious and in the body, there's a memory, an energy that also becomes locked into the system. And so when we're unraveling, we're not just peeling back the layers, but we're also allowing a release of these emotions and these energetics in order to really consciously create. So we then start to work with the conscious mind to be able to intentionally create the life that we want to have and the life experience. And again, that for me is a way that I love to empower people to be able to do that.
So, something you said that I find really fascinating, because I think this comes up a lot in maybe pop culture now. And I know I'm seeing it and I'm reading about it and I'm interested in it. But it's this concept of like healing trauma. And
Mhm.
I think for a lot of people, and probably a lot of people listening who don't have that much experience with healing or maybe even transformation, or maybe they haven't ever worked in the spiritual realm or anything like that. What is
Mhm.
this conversation about trauma? You don't have to answer the whole big thing, but what does that
Mhm.
really mean for the average person?
Again, as we are traveling through life as a soul, we are having experiences which may be heightening our shock senses. Um, and we then again, it's funny because as you said, there's so many ways that I can tackle this and speak about this, but the way that I will speak about this in this instance is that our nervous system becomes heightened in a certain way where it becomes a memory formation. And so whenever we are having the same experience later on, it could be in any other way, that experience, because the memory is in the body, becomes triggered. We seem to have this sort of knee-jerk reaction to that every time we experience it. And so what we want to do is have a look at where and when that trauma response, where it was inserted and where we kind of held on to it, to try and remove it, to release that. But I also want to mention that this trauma can also come from our ancestors and their experiences, because that energy just continues to be passed through the womb. So there can be many cases where you may have a certain fear, and it's not necessarily accumulated by you and your experience in this lifetime. It can also be something that your ancestors had once felt. And to further add to that, there could also be past life trauma that comes through. So as a soul, we have many life experiences, again, where we are accumulating certain things. And then we come into this lifetime and we may have a certain fear of something, but we can't understand where it's come from or why that is there. And so by looking into a past life experience, we can definitely extract to see where that began and started. And trauma's a funny one because you don't actually realize that you're holding on to something, and then you kind of have a response or a reaction, or something comes up. It's a fear or a block. And that's when it becomes quite obvious that there is something which is hanging around in the background.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting because I guess we've been trained sort of societally that trauma is something big and terrible happens, and then you have experienced trauma. And I was reading a
Yeah.
book by Gabby Bernstein recently. So, Gabrielle Bernstein, her book Happy Days. And she talks really about this distinction between the big T trauma and the little t
Mm,
trauma. So big T
mm,
might be something really big that happens in your life. It could be
mm,
assault or abuse or a specific moment in time. And then you have
mm,
these little, I mean, little, I shouldn't even call it little because that sort of
mhm.
minimizes, but you have these smaller kind of collective little t traumas that build up over time,
Yeah.
and that might be bullying in school or a teacher who picked on you or the babysitter said something to you once and you've held on to it. So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
really, yeah, interesting to hear that distinction.
As it builds up, it basically forms a belief system, which again is in the subconscious. So we may have grown up in a household where we heard a certain narrative from our parents. That actually becomes our belief system, and then that becomes our block. What's really interesting about trauma, and I think that was such a great point you made there with the big T and then the little T's, is that I never, for me personally, I never experienced a big T. And so there was me thinking, oh, I don't have any trauma. So when someone used to try to relay trauma to me, I just thought, well, I don't really have, nothing major has happened to me in my life. What I realized is as I started doing the work, there was multiple traumas, which were the smaller traumas, but were really contributing to my health, and how I was experiencing the world, certain fears that I had. So, what's interesting about this work is it's not that we're trying to dig to find things, but what we can find is that there are, once we start the work, we sort of notice that there are things which may seem very subtle, but actually are becoming blocks in adult life.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's also this shows up a lot in the coaching work that I do, right? So as limiting beliefs or just these beliefs that we have and hold on to as truth. And you don't even
mm,
realize this is not the truth. It's not the universal truth that everyone in the world understands. And I think
mhm,
what I'm also hearing from you is you actually start to uncover these beliefs and in your case actually see where did this come from? So how did this
mhm,
potentially begin? And is it something I actually still want to hold on to or not?
mhm.
But really giving people the opportunity to be consciously aware in their own life
Yes.
of what they're thinking, what they're carrying, what they're holding on to. In my case, it's then you have a choice. you can keep doing this. That's great. It's up to you.
Exactly.
Or you can choose let it go and try on some new beliefs.
Yes, exactly. And there are many traumas that you probably just don't even want to go there. And it's not necessary to try to, as I said, like pick at every single thing. However, if there is something that you're trying to achieve or attain in your adult life, we then look to see why isn't this happening or why you're not able to move on in this cycle. So,
So I'm very curious because from how I know you and have gotten to know you, you are really, in my eyes, an evolved woman. You are really someone who's gone deep on the spiritual path. Your purpose, your passion, everything that you're doing is really helping others, helping women in particular,
mm,
uncover what it is that's holding them back. And through whatever
mm,
means, whatever tools that you have at your disposal, helping them to
mm,
clear those blocks.
mm.
Was there a specific moment in time where you just knew this was the work that you had to be doing? How did you get into this place?
That is a very good question. However, I would like to begin with that because I think this is probably the most important thing to know is one thing I never did was ignore my intuition, even though at that time I didn't even realize I had intuition. I had no idea. But the one thing I did was if something really felt not so right for me, I always honored that and listened to that from a very young age. And I had so many people against me at one point because I wasn't following the societal structure, but I almost felt like I was letting myself down or betraying myself if I didn't know why it felt good, but I would move forward with it. So I had no plans whatsoever to do any of this work. My degree is in business and Spanish. I was working in the aviation industry for some time. I have also worked in the wedding industry as a stylist and a makeup artist, which was probably something that really sort of started to develop my coaching skills because obviously when you're working so closely with someone, you are listening and really able to provide. I was really able to provide advice, good advice, even though I didn't know where it was coming from. For me, it started off on a journey of self growth and transformation and evolution, and just this desire to want to better myself, to want to understand the greater world and how things are working in the universe. I'm a very metaphysics kind of girl. I wanted to really, I knew that there was something going on, but I never really understood what it was. And so for me, it was reading and developing myself. This would have been many, many, many years ago. So I would say my 20s. And it started off as a passion and a hobby. And through there, I mean, this journey could be really, really big if I go on. But I went to India to do my yoga teacher training. And I would say that that for me was the big game changer. I think that's when things started becoming more obvious that I really needed to be, and I had the ability to help others. So it started off in yoga, Himalayan Kriya, breath work, and meditation.
Could
So I trained in
could
all
you
of these
just
things.
say what that is? Because I don't know that most people will know what Himalayan
Yes.
meditation and Kriya is.
So it's a very ancient form practiced by old rishis and sages in the Himalayas in India, and it's essentially energizing the spine. There's a big connection to our spiritual senses and the spine, and so what you would do is certain breathwork practices in order to energize those and raise oxygen levels in the body and kind of enter states of transcendence. So it's a very spiritual practice, and I went there to learn how to do this with the hopes of teaching others and helping others. However, my path really sort of started from there, where it turned into my own healing journey. And I had a lot of healing happening there, um, going into Kundalini as well, where you kind of activate an energy within. So that's just one path, and I'll leave that bit there. But from there, what I noticed was my intuition started heightening because I had cleared so much of my personal trauma that I didn't know existed. It then enabled me to better connect to myself, understand my wants, my needs, my desires, what was really fulfilling me. And I would say that after that, the journey has just not stopped. I don't think it will end. And going back to how I began this in terms of my intuition, my personal intuition, even if I didn't understand why I was doing something or why I was so drawn to something, I would never betray that. And I would say it's never done me wrong by doing so, because it's always taken me, along my path. It's drawn out that path. What I find is when you do neglect your senses and your intuition and the feeling, your gut feeling, you actually essentially delay your divine timing, meaning you sort of betray yourself and then end up in another situation that then just takes longer for things to unfold.
It's really fascinating, and I really appreciate you sharing that journey and telling us, a bit of how you got to this place. I find it incredible that you have this inner compass, this inner guidance system that you're really listening to and honoring, and even the use of the word betraying yourself, because that is
Mhm.
actually what's happening when
Mhm.
inside this intuition, this voice within is saying, no, 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 don't make that choice, don't go there, or yes, 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 do this, and you choose a
Mhm.
different path, you will potentially experience suffering from that. And
Yeah.
I think that's actually one of the things that's the hardest for most people to do. There's
Mhm.
so much fear involved for most of us to hear
Mhm.
that voice, to listen to that voice, to trust it. How how could someone actually start to trust that voice in the way that, I mean, you've had it there your whole life, but if someone's really like, oh no, I'm not going there, how could
Mhm.
they start? Maybe one baby step they could take to start listening closely.
For me personally, and I think if you're on a spiritual path already, or you kind of have some kind of inkling, or you're drawn, what I would recommend is you've got to make your faith greater than your fear,
Hmm.
because essentially nobody really knows where they're going. And a lot of this is blind faith. But it's up to you to decide whether you want to heighten your fears and really live through your fears and have really small amount of faith, or whether you'd like to turn it the other way. And that is a conscious practice to grow your faith. For me, that looks like a religious practice. It would be something like really sitting in contemplation and trying to develop a connection by connecting to something greater than myself, whether it be the universe, whether it be angels, whether it be spirit, a guide, or God, even, whatever is most comfortable for you. Develop and find a connection with something else. Nature is also a really great example. So it's got to be something bigger than you. But what I would always say is consciously develop that connection so that you can observe and increase your faith. And so it becomes a case of no matter what, even though I'm scared, no matter what, I'm still deciding to take this next step, even though I don't know what the outcome's going to be, because I have faith that, you know, there is something bigger out there which is, guiding me and showing me the way. And I always say, even if it's not, even if it ends up being something else, you're still always on the path. Even when you feel like you are taking a detour or moving in a different direction, there's nothing bad that can come of it. You would have learned something. There would be something greater. So once you develop the understanding that there is no wrong move, you can sort of feel more comfortable and you can find some sort of peace in knowing that no matter what step you take next, it will still guide you and lead you to wherever you want to be or need to be. So even if it's a baby step, take it.
I love this distinction. And actually, what comes to mind for me, so I've had quite a background in corporate, like leadership
Mm,
development and helping professionals develop in teams. And one of the key principles for, well, psychological safety and trust in an organization is that you're allowed to make mistakes and fail. So you're allowed to
mm,
just try things out and get it wrong without being punished, without being penalized. That's the corporate side of things, right? But
mm-hmm,
it plays into our private life as well. And listening to you talk, that's exactly what I'm hearing, that
mm-hmm,
you're taking a step. You're saying take a step in faith, but you're really just taking a step, not knowing what could happen, knowing that you can screw it all up or make a mistake or
mm-hmm.
who knows what, and it's fine because it's all a part of the unfolding and the journey, and
Yeah,
try it out and see what happens.
yeah. Everything is always okay. Like I always say that for me in my world, there's never a mistakes don't exist. Because I think we've learned this from childhood that oh you mustn't make a mistake, you don't want to be a failure, you don't want to be. There's such a label and a category that's put on that people are afraid to live because they don't want to have that label of being a failure or making a mistake. You know, it's like if you take a wrong, not a wrong step, but if you take a step in a direction where you had a little bit of a lesson to learn there, what did I learn from this?
A
How can I grow
detour.
from this? Yeah, it's always a detour, and that's okay. That's okay.
There was one other thing that you had mentioned when sharing your own story, and
Mm,
I would love to just draw this out a bit because it's another word that we hear, and I think most people don't really know what it means. And you said that you had a lot of your
mhm,
own healing to do, and you first had to do your own healing, and
mhm,
then dot, dot, dot.
mhm,
What is that healing? What does that mean? Maybe in your case, or even if you've seen it with clients, what is
mhm.
that kind of healing?
So, if I understand your question correctly, if, for me, being able to help somebody else, I work with a lot of integrity, and integrity is very important for me. So, for me, what that looks like is not working with a client and seeing things through my own lens, meaning my own life experiences and what I'm feeling. Um, for me, that is not working in integrity, and it's not the way I choose to operate. For me, it's like I see my clients through a neutral lens, through a higher perspective. And in order to do so, I had to get rid of a lot of my own baggage. And this is why this journey began with me, this path of self evolution, where I had to eliminate my fears and my traumas and my beliefs and blocks and things that I had inherited from family and generations and ancestors and past lives and what have you not. You know, there's a lot there, but I had to ensure that my side of the street was clean and clear before I could help another. And I had this path, and what I have just described wasn't something that was intentional. However, I stayed true to my gut feeling and just moved forward with a receptivity and a good intention, and it sort of led me along my path, and it's just sort of opened up very, very naturally.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I think we hear the word healing and think it's magical and beautiful and rainbows and butterflies. And
Mm.
actually, it's a challenging process of facing yourself, of facing all those, as you said, those fears or doubts or whatever it is that's within you that needs to be moved aside so you can step into that higher purpose, or in your case, really being able to help others.
Yeah.
So, in this work that you do, and I want to dive a bit more into the meat of it in just a moment, but I also know you've studied a lot of different modalities. Would you
Mhm.
like to share a little bit about the things that have captured your interest over the years?
Absolutely. So I am an avid reader and a learner, and what was very, very important for me, particularly in the modern day, where we are right now, the way we're living, what I found was spirituality, and this kind of journey has almost become, and this isn't everyone. I'm not speaking to everyone, but I have seen glimpses of it where it's almost a little bit gimmicky and a little bit woo is not the right word. Of course, it's woo woo, but almost in a way where it's almost not a serious thing. It's a bit fluffy. And so for me, what I love, and what was really interesting was to really get to the core and really, really address and see what's going on. So I have studied many modalities which help to really get to the bottom. And I like to look at the body as not just a human body. I see all the different layers that we hold on to from an energetic perspective as well. So I have, as I've mentioned before, trained in yoga, breath work, and meditation, which is very, very important. Three factors there. I've also trained in theta healing. I've also trained as a medical intuitive. So I do a lot of intuitive healing, which is specific to the body and ailments and diseases. I have also trained as a healing diets coach, and what that looks like is looking at the nutritional deficiencies, vitamin deficiencies, mineral deficiencies in the body that are actually creating imbalances on a mental, spiritual, and emotional level. Um, there's so much here to mention. I don't want to forget anything. I also look at using external substances, not substances, sorry, not the right word, um, but gemstones and other things that nature has provided us with from an astrological perspective, looking at how we can use precious and semi-precious stones from the earth in order to also help heal and work with the body. So just to bring everything into harmony. So those are the main ones.
I find it so fascinating how everyone finds such a different way and different journey to enter either the healing space or the energy space or their own spiritual path. And it's really incredible how you've just picked these things. I'm sure there was the intuition, there was the moment, this is the thing, this is what I need, and building up almost your encyclopedia of knowledge of what it is that you can use to actually bring in your practice today, doing this root cause healing work.
Absolutely. And actually, I've just remembered that there were so many that I actually forgot to mention. Probably the main one after all that, and it's QHHT. So where I basically work with hypnosis, past life regressions, and the subconscious on a much deeper level, which is a huge part of my work. I'm like, how dare I forget that one? Yeah,
So I hear the theta healing, which is healing in that theta state. There is
correct.
the
Yeah.
QHHT, which luckily episode number 3 was with Vladi, who is also a practitioner of quantum healing hypnosis. So she shared a bit about that method
Hmm.
with us.
Hmm.
Um, and you're also a medium, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one. I am a medium. Yes, I do work with spirit for healing purposes. I get lots of funny questions about that one because people think that I'm connecting with spirit all day long, and people who have crossed over on the other side. However, I use it to work with people who are going through grief and lots of other things. If there are messages from spirit that a client needs to know, something important, then I will, of course, be a channel for that.
So, knowing that you've had this, I want to say like open channel to your intuition for a good part of your life, whether you knew it or not, is this something that was present in your family? Was this in your childhood? Do others believe? What's that relationship like?
So I believe my grandmother, who has now passed on, she was a very powerful lady and a highly intuitive lady. However, I feel like I became more aware of this after she'd passed. I wasn't aware of it while she was still here in her body. In terms of, for me personally, I can very honestly tell you that when I was a child, I didn't believe in any of this. I didn't think I was intuitive. I didn't think I had any abilities. Again, lots of self-doubt. I also didn't really believe in manifestation and the laws of the universe, our magnetism, our ability to magnetize things to us. I felt like I was probably the least magnetic person. And the reason why I mention that is because I strongly believed that this stuff was available for other people and not myself. And it, it, it just so happened that I went through my own sort of journey of healing where it sort of cracks you open. And I always say it's when you've been cracked open that the light can really start to shine through. It's from that point. In my case, it was like I really went through a bad case of depression, panic attacks. I probably was at my lowest after a breakup, and that is when I started to want to understand things better about myself and about the world, and that's when things started changing. And that would be, I would say, about 14 years, 15 years ago now.
Wow. Okay. Um, yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. And I think it's quite interesting to take a look at the family and see. I think for a lot of people, there could be stigma in their family or their society or whatever around them that would prevent them from being able to take a step forward or maybe seek out the support that would really help them where they want to go in their life. So it's always, yeah, I'm always curious to hear how someone who's really made this your life's work relates to that, and maybe some of those barriers, that you might have had to overcome to be able to step into that more fully.
I think we are of a very different age and generation now, that I strongly believe that women in previous generations, particularly our ancestors, there were lots of things which you just could not speak about openly without being judged by other family members. It was, in society, it was just not the done thing. And so it's very difficult to know and pinpoint exactly who may have had certain abilities within the ancestral line. It was shut down because there were so many stigmas and things attached to that. And so I really strongly believe that I am of the first generation in my family line to have really been brave enough to create that space. I am also noticing that within my clients as well, who are sort of like the game changers in their family. They're really sort of disrupting all the old patternings and really sort of consciously creating and paving a new way forward.
So now, what exactly is your approach to healing? So if someone comes to you and they want support,
Mhm.
what's that process? What's that approach?
So I like to make things very easy, very relaxed. So initially, I have a very long consultation with a client just to have a chat. And it really is for me to understand their family background, any medical illnesses or anything, any kind of repeating patterns medically within a family line, because that gene sometimes does continue to run through. But then I also like to understand about my clients' lifestyle, their upbringing, their childhood. As I am having these conversations with them, I am actually intuiting information at the same time. So I extract information from them. I also, as I mentioned before, body whisper. So I see, what energy may be actually, or emotions may be trapped in the body.
Sorry, what is body whispering?
So I listen into the vocabulary and the words that a client may be using quite often. They work as clues as to what's actually going on inside the body. Sometimes so basically when energy is in the body and when it's trapped in the body, they're connecting to like a particular organ, or if they're having some sort of disease or ailments in a particular area, it's interesting for me to understand what it is that the organ or what the body is trying to communicate to the person through presenting different ailments and diseases. So if someone's got an issue with their legs, there's often an issue with moving forward. There tends to be typically some fears, and that will show up with ankle issues or knee issues. So, and that kind of works with all different parts of the body. So I have a very, very extensive informal chat, and the client has a great time because they've got someone to really just share their entire life with, confidentially. And based on that, I then see what I feel is going to work best for them in terms of the modality. I typically use a lot of my tools from my toolbox, because I feel like I like to really work with different parts of the energy layers of the body. I'm not a one trick pony. So for me, I don't just have one tool and then just like to use that and just hope for the best. For me, it's like I really use the different tools to ensure that whatever issue that or block or whatever has they've been faced with doesn't come back. So for me, it's like I like to just make sure we've worked with it, it's dealt with, it's clean, it's clear on every single level for them to just be able to move forward and move into the next chapter of their life. I've forgotten the question now. I'm so sorry.
That was perfect. Um,
Okay, great.
yeah, no, it's really getting an understanding also of what it means to heal the root cause. So you bring in all these different modalities, someone comes in and you're
Mhm.
able to really evaluate with them through their story, through their language, through the energy layers, maybe physical
Yeah,
symptoms that they're having. Where is
yes,
this actually coming from? And how
yes,
can we address that where it begins?
yes. Exactly. And I take the clients through a journey based on that. So we always start with assessing their lifestyle choices right now. We then sort of clear up and do the decluttering and sort of make some basic changes to start with their lifestyle and how that can kind of how it's not supporting them. I then move on to the deeper root healing work, which is really getting to the bottom of it. So that's going through all the traumas, as I'd mentioned before, perhaps looking at past life things and generational things as well. So that's like the real crux of the healing work. Once that's done, I then move on to more empowerment coaching, where it's more helping them to actually build a framework of moving forward, and obviously us giving them the tools as well to when they move forward. These are the daily practices that you can do to actually support you in this energy as you're moving along. So it's more of a journey rather than a one-off. This is, yeah.
And is there anything, maybe from your catalog of like clients that you've worked with, are there any stories or specific types of healing that you've seen that you've just been like, oh my gosh, someone who comes in with a
Yeah,
pain they've never been able to get rid of, or maybe a
yeah.
story like that?
So uh, the with the type of work that I do, as mentioned, I do work with medical ailments and illnesses, as well as it could be relationship work and career work as well. So, one being pelvic floor issues and just kind of sexual related issues have been something that's come up, and a client has not been able to resolve this. She's tried many types of therapies, and we've had breakthroughs through this work. And where we had actually found to this particular situation was the crux of where that problem started was actually in a previous lifetime, which was presenting itself as a block in this lifetime. So that was super fantastic. And I've worked with a client who, that there'd been sexual trauma from childhood, and, not being able to move from that, not even understanding how to have the nervous system sort of stabilized. Because when you experience things in your childhood, it really sort of sets a tone for how you're kind of living and experiencing the world as an adult. So that was super work. We worked through all of that. And then it kind of also moves on to, clients manifesting marriage proposals, to greater career jumps and leaps, where they're open and receptive to earning. Their earning ceiling has now gone to the next level.
I think a lot
So
of people will be interested in that one.
yeah, you would be so amazed and so surprised at how we have our own upper limits. And we sort of, we find ourselves not being able to break through because we've set our limit. And again, that could be coming from so many different places. But as women, we have a tendency to do this because we don't want to be too much. We don't want to be seen as too successful or doing too well. There's so many stigmas that have come through older like generations where a woman has to be a certain way. And again, consciously we're trying to move out into the world and do bigger things and greater things. But if our conscious mind and energetically we're still holding on to some things that are from the past that are very old, um, it's really hard to move forward energetically. So that's a really interesting one.
And one thing you said, you're giving me so much here, by the way, because I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
hold on, because I also know that you have a lot of this wisdom.
Mm.
Manifesting in engagement.
Mhm.
Manifesting is a word that a lot of people can be triggered by, right? Like, oh, if
Yeah,
I sit and I wish and I hope and I look
absolutely.
in the mirror and I say, I will be married, then it's going to happen. What does
Yeah.
that mean in this case? How would you describe manifesting, whether it's a relationship or a new job or
Hmm.
something that you really want in your life?
Hmm. So funny enough, the word manifesting is also a really icky word for me. I've got to be honest with you. Again, I feel like it's one of those trendy words that came up, and all of a sudden everybody's trying to teach you how to manifest. And the reason why I can speak to this so openly is because I fell into the same category where, many, many years ago, I discovered this book, and I really wanted to know how to do this, and I did the whole vision board and the mood board and things like that, and then I'd be really disappointed because it wasn't working for me, and then I'd sort of think, maybe I'm just not the lucky one. Maybe it's just for lucky people and certain people. And it's really, you feel really defeated by this. And it can really turn someone against manifestation until I actually learned, this goes back to me really wanting to understand the core of something. And I really learned the core of manifestation. Manifestation is simply, in my eyes, magnetism. And we are magnetism based on our frequency. So we are constantly in a manifestation process. Everything is energy, and everything is just responding to our energy, what energy we are emitting on a frequency perspective. And we could be also manifesting things that we want, but also things that we don't necessarily want. And so for me, manifestation is consciously creating what it is you do want and living in that energetically and also mentally as well. In doing so, when you take care of your frequency, you actually become more magnetic. And so manifestation becomes a really natural process. It's almost like a byproduct of your frequency and your growth. This is another reason why the root cause healing is so important for me, because if you want to manifest and you want to make this a whole lifetime thing, not just like manifesting a new car and then job done. It's like, no, I want you to be able to feel so empowered that you know what you're doing, to be able to consciously create in every journey and every step that you take in your life. That is so important for me. But in order to do that, you've really got to sort out your frequency and your energy. And the only way you can do that is by eliminating the layers, eliminating the blocks that don't belong to you, the fears, the old narratives. You've got to get rid of all of that to clear up this whole energy field and your frequency, so you can then manifest very easily and very consciously.
That is incredibly helpful. It's really getting that clear understanding of what it is that you want, knowing that you still have to do that inner work of
Yeah.
handling your stuff, and then
Yep.
creating as clear of a channel, as clear of a yeah, channel's the best word, as you
Yeah.
can, so that when you're connecting to the thing you want, you really believe it's possible for you. As opposed to, I really want this
Exactly.
thing, and then you're sitting there in your head going, I'll never get it. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I won't ever have the money. I da da
Exactly.
da da da. Da.
Exactly, because you are ascendant, and this is what I was doing before, by the way. So when I say that things didn't work for me, it wasn't that because, God forgot about me. It was simply because I wanted something, and I was made to believe, because, by writing it down or just by putting a picture of it, that you're going to get it. No, 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 no. I couldn't have reached that or attained that if my frequency, and I had all these old beliefs in my head that I'm not worthy, or, it's not for me and it's only for a certain type of person and blah, blah, blah. So that's what I mean by, that's the stuff I had to really clear up in order for me to create the connection and the bridge between what it is I do want and who I actually am. And you close that gap, and then it just becomes like harmony. We all want to live in harmony with the universe.
So, for someone who is listening and they're thinking, this is incredible, I want to learn more, are there resources or books or thought leaders or teachers that you think are really powerful that people should go have a look at?
Yes, so I have gravitated to different teachers through different stages of my journey. I would definitely say at the very, very, very beginning of my journey, I gravitated a lot to the teachings of Wayne Dyer. His book, There is a Spiritual Solution to Everything. That was probably one of the first books that I ever invested in. It's still on my bookshelf, but that is the very first book that I had to read to be able to understand that life isn't bad, life isn't hard, things are not always trying to go against you, nobody is against you, and that there is a reason and a deeper meaning behind everything that is going on in your life right now, and something that we can all learn from. So that definitely was the very first point of my journey. I then moved on to Gabby Bernstein, which, who has fantastic work. I love what she's doing. After that, however, I needed to go really, really quite deep. So, I mean, I've always been a big fan of Oprah Winfrey. I think Super Soul Sunday, I believe it is, podcast. I think that's so nice. I think it's such a good variety of spiritual topics, and also very something that a lot of teachings that we can bring here into the world today. So I think those are sort of like the baseline teachers. For me personally, I really go quite further afield with it. So for me, there's Manly Hall, there is Dr. Joseph Murphy. These are really, really old teachers who are really teaching from a different perspective and quite a worldly perspective. So
That's really powerful. And
hope that helps.
I'll link to all of those resources or books that you
Super.
mentioned in the show notes as well. And also some of the ones that you've been mentioning throughout the conversation, just so people can have a look, build their curiosity on the topic. And how could people get in touch with you? So if someone says, oh my gosh, I need to work with Natalia or Patricia Natalia, depending,
Yes.
how can
Yeah.
they get in touch? Where should they reach you?
So you can find me on Instagram. The handle is at the Conscious Wellbeing Company, or my email address, which is info@theconsciouswellbeingcompany.com. You are more than welcome to drop me an email, or even if you have a question about anything that I may have mentioned, always happy to help and be of support.
So I'll link to that as well. And are there
Thank you.
any last, maybe a piece of wisdom or advice for someone who's getting started on their journey, who's not really sure which direction to take or where to turn? Anything that you'd like to share or say to them?
Yes, don't overthink. Don't overthink it. I think often what happens is we're scared to take a wrong step or a wrong move, and the best way to start is to start somewhere. So, whatever piques your interest, it's piquing your interest for a reason. And even if it doesn't make sense to you, you may be worried, well, how can I make a living or a career from this? That's something that you shouldn't even need to worry about. I say the universe always takes care of that for you. Your the best service you can do for yourself is just to trust your intuition and to follow that. So as I said, even if it's a gut hunch that you need to be in a certain location, you need to go somewhere, you need to travel somewhere, or read a book or take a course, whatever it may be, just take that step and just do it. And whatever comes from that will just flow very, very naturally. There is no end goal. I think sometimes we sort of think, right, when I complete this, and I'm going to be this, and that's just the end of it. This is an infinite journey. It doesn't end. So don't have that expectation and just have fun and flow.
Powerful words. I am so, so grateful that you have come on and really shared so generously all of this wisdom. I think people are really going to have their eyes open to a very different type of experience and healing than what they might have been taught is possible for them. So I'm
Yes,
really thankful. Thank you so much for saying yes
thank
and
you.
coming here today and just showering us with all of your magic, which it really is, this magical touch that you
Thank you.
have.
Thank you. It's honestly it's an absolute pleasure and honor to even be speaking with you, Amanda. So thank you.
And thank you for tuning in to this episode of Don't Step on the Bluebells. Don't forget to check out the show notes where you can find all of this amazing information about Natalia and her work and these links and resources that she shared. And also don't forget to get your pod sheet for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining us on this week's episode. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a future episode. To dive deeper into today's conversation, make sure to visit www.don'tsteponthebluebells.com and grab your exclusive pod sheet. It's packed with valuable takeaways that will enrich your listening experience. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.